Hi, and welcome to Nurturing Compassion. I'm Nicole, and this is my rescue pup, Charlie, and here on this channel, I talk about becoming the most compassionate versions of ourselves through our lifestyle choices. If this is something you're interested in, please consider hitting the red subscribe button. So today, I want to talk about dependency and domesticated animals. So picture it for a second that the world has gone vegan, that we have decided to liberate animals from the oppressive structures that humans have created for them. What now happens to all of these domesticated animals that are pretty much dependent on humans in order for their survival because of what humans have done to them? Now, there are all kinds of different ideas about this in the animal rights community, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about where I come from on this stand. So there are some humans that believe that there is no way to truly liberate animals from the oppression of humans while still having domesticated animals. And therefore, they believe that these animals really ought not to exist, that they are better off being sterilized and taken care of while they are alive and then being completely eliminated off this planet, and that we ought not to have any relationships with animals regardless of how well we take care of them. Now, I am referring specifically to the philosopher Gary Francione, and I have an excerpt of his from the amazing book by Sunaura Taylor, Beast of Burden, Animal and Disability Liberation, which is what inspired this video. So if Sunaura Taylor ever sees this video, I'm actually going to scream because she is a brilliant, brilliant person. She includes Gary Francione's excerpt, and it says, "Domestic animals are neither a real nor full part of our world or of the non-human world." See, Charlie doesn't like it already. "They exist forever in another world of vulnerability, dependent on us for everything, and at risk of harm from an environment that they do not really understand. We have bred them to be compliant and servile, or to have characteristics that are actually harmful to them but are pleasing to us. We may make them happy in one sense, but the relationship can never be natural or normal. They do not belong stuck in our world, irrespective of how well we treat them." Basically, what Francione is suggesting is, as I previously mentioned, that these animals really ought to be allowed to go extinct. But I think that a fundamental thing that is missing from this argument is that it ignores the fact that we human beings are animals. We are a part of nature, and we have done a lot to disrupt it and destroy it. But that doesn't change the fact that we are still a part of nature. I also think that this argument ignores so much of what animal rights activists are trying to do. I know for me personally that my animal rights activism is about creating a compassionate world. It is about creating a world where humans and animals can coexist. And I think that allowing domesticated animals to go extinct is taking the easy way out, in a way. It is completely absolving ourselves of the responsibility of what we did to these animals. To decide that they don't have a right to exist is further oppressing them. For example, I know that some people may say that I only view this because I'm selfishly seeing animals and my relationship to them as something that is important to me. But I disagree. You see, because I think that intuitively, human beings want to love and care for other beings. Especially, as a woman, I think that I especially have this sort of care ethic ingrained in me, that I have a strong desire to love and nurture other beings. I don't think that I would have that outlook if I didn't grow up having dogs, if I didn't grow up getting to experience how incredible and complex animals are. Another thing, and this is what Sunaura Taylor talks a lot about, is that there is this ideal, especially in the Western world, that idealizes independence, that idealizes freedom. But what it fails to consider is that no matter how much of a man-made success you are, you completely created your own success, you really didn't do that on your own. There are people that are supporting you. There are structures in place that are supporting you. No matter how able-bodied you are, you still rely on others in emotional, physical, and structural ways. And so by deciding what it means to be dependent or not is purely a human-made social structure. And I agree with Taylor when she says that this idea that there is something wrong or stupid or just completely unnatural about animals who have been domesticated simply because they are dependent on humans for care is completely problematic. Because when we have this negative view of dependence, what does that mean for disabled humans? Does that mean that they are not worthy of living a full and incredible life because of their disability? I just think that there's nothing wrong with admitting that everyone needs some kind of dependency in their life, and that is actually what makes us part of nature. We rely on nature for our food, for our water. So we can't exist by being purely solitary, by being purely independent. It's just what we as humans have decided it means to be independent versus what it means to be dependent. When you consider animals, I think that, we've done this to domestic animals, and surely that if the world went vegan, there are a lot of factory farmed animals who have been completely biologically manipulated. Take the chicken, for example. Chickens have been so heavily biologically manipulated that if you were to compare a 8-week-old chicken, who usually weighs around 4 pounds, to a human being that was 8 months old, or 8 weeks old, that human being would weigh around 350 pounds, if not more. It is sick what we are doing to animals. These animals, because they are so heavy, because they have been so manipulated to increased breast meat, to lay as many eggs as possible in their short lives, their bones are so brittle. They literally break under the weight of their own body. I actually visited Karen Davis. She is an incredible woman on the Eastern Shore. She runs the animal rights organization called United Poultry Concerns, and basically what her sanctuary is a safe haven for rescued chickens. She has chickens from all over the place, chickens who were liberated from cockfighting operations, chickens who were backyard chickens who people just couldn't really take care of anymore, as well as sometimes getting factory farm chickens from Purdue, from Tyson, from Mountain Air, because here on the Eastern Shore is one of the largest chicken producers in the country. So I have a photograph of one of her Purdue chickens next to some of the other fully grown adult chickens. And this chicken is a year old, and just look at how obese their body is, how much bigger they are. It's very difficult for these birds to survive. She says that her Purdue chickens from factory farms typically last a year at most because they suffer from massive heart attacks. I kind of see where the argument is going in terms of this suffering that is inflicted on these factory farm animals because of biological manipulation is wrong. It's not really fair. Maybe we shouldn't be breeding those chickens, but it's also, I see it from Sunaura Taylor's perspective, who sees that just because an animal is disabled does not mean that they cannot live a full life, that they are not worthy of life. Regardless, I don't think that extinction is the answer. I understand that animals like the Purdue chickens who have been so manipulated may be suffering, and that we should try to get them as far away from those manipulations as possible. I understand that dogs like pugs and corgis have been bred for such specific traits that make them cute that are very detrimental to their health later on. But we have a responsibility to these animals to make them comfortable, to allow them to live out their natural desires to life and to happiness. And because we have done this to them is precisely why we are responsible for helping them. I find it so troubling that for some animal rights activists, they completely get the point of factory farms are wrong, I gotta be vegan, animals are intelligent and worthy, and then their conclusion is that domestic animals are unnatural and that they ought not to exist. As Sunaura Taylor says, you know, what makes my body natural or unnatural? Is my body unnatural because I had a bunch of operations when I was a kid? Also, her disability is the result of military pollution, and so does that make her body unnatural? This idea of what is natural and what is not is so not clear-cut. It is such a difficult thing to even begin to explain, but fundamentally, we humans are a part of nature, and that is why I believe we have so many problems in factory farming and in mass agriculture, monocropping, pesticides, and etc., is because we are trying to rise above nature, be something that is beyond nature, that can dominate nature, but it doesn't change the fact that we are nature, and so when we destroy nature, we are destroying ourselves. You look at all these animals in factory farms and they have all these diseases. They have cancers, they have ovarian problems, they die of heart attacks and heart disease. And then you look at the leading causes of human death in America, and what is it? Heart disease is number 1, cancer is number 2. And then on top of that, rather than looking at the proven facts that animal products have been linked to these diseases, that a vegan diet is the only diet known to actually be able to reverse heart disease, and we ignore that and continue the exploitation and cruelty towards these animals. And then we go and we do research tests on animals, trying out different experiments, attempting to alleviate these diseases in humans. But again, just like when we started having to use pesticides and fertilizers, it's just a band-aid solution. It's not addressing the root of the problem, which is that we are ignoring the fact that we are one with nature. We are dependent on nature, and there is nothing wrong with dependency. So I completely disagree with the idea that if the world were to go vegan, if we were to stop producing animals, that domestic animals should go extinct. And I really don't think that I am arriving at this conclusion from my own selfish desire to have animals in my life. I mean, I certainly value my relationship with animals. I also think that if humans did not have any contact with animals, inevitably we would resort to the same system that we have now of killing and exploiting them, because eventually it would be lost in generations why we value and love animals and why we leave them alone. I mean, even just wild animals, all these philosophers glamorize wild animals as these natural beings who are so autonomous. But the fact of the matter is that in a way, they are still dependent on humans too. They are dependent on humans to not destroy their habitats, to make sure that they have an environment that is clean and healthy for them to live in. So that is another kind of dependence in and of itself. There's no such thing as non-dependency. We are all one. We are the same nature, and just because humans have done all they can to separate themselves from that, it doesn't change the fact that it's true. We're all animals. We're all part of nature. So that's where I stand on this issue. I would love to hear what you guys think about domestic animals and the part that they play in the world. If they are against vegan ideals, let me know in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye!